culturally responsive educators. Whether you are a teacher in the classroom or an instructional leader, this show is for you. Please remember, we are here on a mission to get our subscriber list to 500. We are in the 50s, so we could definitely use your help. Please visit the caption or the link that is below in one of the comments and join our YouTube page by hitting subscribe, liking this video, sharing it, commenting on things that have spoke to your soul, or even things that rise up questions within you. I would love to dialogue with you all, and I appreciate your support in helping us to normalize culturally responsive teaching and leadership in schools across America and across the globe. Just to be clear, culturally responsive teaching is the integration of cognition, the way our brain thinks, engages with memory, emotions, and experience for learning, and combining that with our culture, which is our humanity's connection to the world around us and how we make meaning of that world. So these sessions are typically about 30 minutes or less in length. So I am requesting your beautiful presence here as we dive deep into today's conversation. And so today we are going to be talking about, and excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, but today we're going to be talking about the truth behind teacher resistance and why you can't seem to connect with your teacher teams. And so what happens a lot, I've experienced this as a teacher, as an instructional leader, and I witness it even as a consultant who partners with schools and districts to help culturally responsive teaching and leadership practices develop and flourish. And I noticed this thing called teacher resistance. And what I mean when I'm talking about teacher resistance is we're talking about what happens when we are presenting these initiatives. We have new programs, we have new ways of being, we have things that are going to boost student culture, teacher culture, the learning culture, all the things. But there are some teachers who are going to push against what you are trying to put out. You could have all of the right tools. You could have the most amazing program that you found and you've seen how it's worked in similar districts or schools to yours. But there will be some who, if there is a disconnection in your building amongst your teacher teams, they are going to give out this resistance. And what I found is that a lot of the resistance is not simply from this stance that I don't want to do anything new. It's not only from this stance of I don't want to help kids or I don't want to do what's best for young people. But a lot of this teacher resistance comes from a lack of connection and a lack of knowledge about what you are bringing to the table as an instructional leader. And so often you as an instructional leader, I know this because I was over a technology initiative, for example, when I was working in the K through 12 school. And I had to come to realize that it was not always a personal issue that teachers had with me. It was that there was too much on their plate. And in metaphorical terms, they were regurgitating or vomiting because there was so much that we were trying to stuff down their throats to do for young people that made their jobs harder and didn't allow them to work smarter or in a way that really made a true impact. So here's some evidence of resistance, okay? I'm going to give you a few things that you can look out for. Number one, when you see evidence of resistance, some of the time you're going to see that because there is an unidentified collective set of core values. So your team, your teacher teams, whether it's department teams, grade level span teams, content area teams, whatever your teacher teams consist of, they have to have these collective core values. And so what happens is when you don't have that, you can guarantee, you can count on there being some teacher resistance. And it's not good enough, instructional leaders, for you to have just a few teachers who are doing this new work or who are enacting this new way of being or this new policy or curriculum or ideas that you all are supposed to be doing as a whole staff. I need you to look at the numbers because we look at numbers a lot. Look at the percentage of people in your building who are actively engaging with consistency and working through an impact driven lens to enact these new programs or curriculums. And 9 times out of 10, if you have more that are not than are, you've got a problem. And what I always encourage instructional leaders that I coach and consult with is I ask them to go around and ask your teachers in informal conversations, ask them, what is the purpose of this initiative, this program, this curriculum? How has it been positively influencing students? What things do you need to see changed within this curriculum? And you can gauge by the quality of their responses if they are truly engaging with this new initiative or this way of being that you want to see normalized within your school. If you're getting vague responses that are not pinpointing specific areas of the initiative or the culture shift, then you are probably talking with someone who is not wholeheartedly engaging. They are resisting in some way. And that resistance can look different. Sometimes resistance may be, you have cliques and groups of teacher friends or teacher groups that are talking about how much they do not like the new initiative. You hear the chatter in the break room or in the teacher's lounge. You may even see the eyes rolling when you're talking about this initiative within your PLCs or your professional development meetings or even your staff meetings. You're noticing that there is not a lot of talk about trial and error, because with every new curriculum piece, with every new culture shift, with every new program, there is going to be trial and error. The error may be large, it may be small, depends on who is enacting this curriculum, how familiar they are with the program. But you should have some conversations that reflect that there's a trial and error. If you're not hearing that, if all you're hearing are complaints, if all you're hearing that they weren't even able to start it because there's all these things going on, this is not a time for you to get up in arms and hammer down on compliance. This is a time to notice that there is a disconnection. This is a time for you to dig deep within your soul, to do your own soul work so that you're not taking their disconnection from the program or the initiative. I'm just going to say initiative to cover anything, but it's going to take you seeing that that is not always a personal vendetta. Truthfully, there are situations where there are toxic work environments. And if it is a personal vendetta against you, and there is something that you can be doing better, this is a time for you to think about surveying teachers anonymously. I've talked about this before. Having conversations or getting some outside external help where you can come in and get to the root of the issue. Because transformative leaders cannot transform if they don't know what needs to be transformed. I'm going to say it again. Transformative school leaders, which all of us need to be, especially with the state of education being what it is. Transformative leaders cannot transform the educational landscape, the instructional landscape, the way that teaching and learning is occurring, the way students are showing academic progress or the lack thereof. You cannot transform that space if you don't even know what has to be transformed. And a lot of that is built on those personal relationships and understanding the people, the humans that you're working with, the barriers that are holding them up from engaging in this new initiative. Because a lot of the time, the barriers may not be the program in and of itself. It may be that there are too many programs. I've seen schools where they have so many initiatives, so many curriculum pieces, so many programs that are out here, and expect teachers to be able to do them all really well. And that is a far-fetched and quite insane expectation, because good teaching doesn't need a whole lot of gadgets. It needs good pedagogy. It needs teachers with an attitude where they can see the assets and the abilities and the belief in their students' abilities and their own abilities as teachers. So sometimes it's not the initiative, it is a lack of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief that I believe I am able to do a thing and do it well. If you don't know that that is an issue or a block, you will, as an instructional leader, continue to work through compliance where you are pushing and pushing and pushing this to be done so that you can have the numbers show that they've done it. But in reality, if the barriers are dealing with confidence and competence in a skill set, if the barriers are dealing with, I can't even get the young people to listen to my directions long enough to even enact this initiative. If the barrier is, I don't even believe this initiative is worthy or valuable enough to do what we needed to do, and it's a waste of my time, those are the barriers that you need to be able to deal with. Okay. Because what's going to happen, which is going to show you evidence of resistance number two, is that these initiatives and these programs are either going to be ignored, neglected, or disconnected. And I've really kind of spoken on those already. You're going to get where some teachers are going to flat out refuse to enact it, even if they tell you they are. You may come in and they do the what they call it, the horse and pony show, where they act as though they are engaging with this new initiative, but you actually are not seeing the full effects of this initiative when it comes to student outcomes and when it comes to student learning. So you're seeing these things be ignored. You're seeing these things be neglected. You're seeing these things happen. My point. You're going to see those initiatives and those programs be ignored, be neglected, or even be rejected, and there's a disconnection in your teacher team. And so that is the core issue that a lot of us don't have the time, maybe, or we don't take the time. But this is the most important investment as an instructional leader that you need to look into. Is looking at the lack of teacher team disconnection. How disconnected is your team really? Are you all able to actually learn from one another on the team? And when I say learn, I mean learn ways to navigate your emotional journey, your emotional awareness, the resilience building that is necessary to teach the young people that are before you today. What is the journey that you all are experiencing with each other that normalizes adult growth mindset? That means that there are going to be times where teachers should be able to feel vulnerable enough to show that what they tried worked in one area, but maybe not in another. And I need to problem solve with my colleagues, with my team members, with my peers to help me to navigate the uneasiness that comes when we fail at something we've really tried hard at. A lot of times teachers face this big monster called perfectionism. Perfectionism keeps us from reaching our fullness, from reaching who we really are supposed to be, because it makes us believe that when we don't get something right as we anticipated, that we don't have what it takes to get it right. It doesn't tell us that we can step back. We can partner in community with other folks. We can help others to uncover their blind spots while they assist us in doing the same. So being on these teacher teams is important, but what it's going to take from you as an instructional leader is quite a few things, and I'm going to only touch on a couple of them. Courage. Where is your courage as an instructional leader? And when I mean courage, I've talked to instructional leaders and I just kind of do some brain picking to see where their dreams have stopped dreaming. Where have they stopped dreaming about the impact that they wanted to have when they took the interview for the job of instructional leadership? Whether you're a coach or a department leader, or you're an academic dean or an assistant principal who is in charge of the academic progress of your school, those dreams, those hopes, those aspirations have fizzled out. Sometimes it's because there's a ton of emails before you. There's a mound of student behavior and the bureaucracy of it all, of filling out paperwork and getting statements from students because there was a fight, or dealing with teacher to teacher conflict and the hostility that comes from toxic work environments. It's a myriad of issues that have led a lot of instructional leaders away from why they started in this role. But I encourage you to ask yourself, where is your courage to get back to why you took this position, to get back to what you dreamed the impact to be that you would have on young people? And that impact may be, if you're especially dealing with instructional leadership, that impact is going to have to be through the connections you make with the teachers. And I know it seems like, oh, they don't want to do anything new. The teachers are sometimes stuck in this thing called traditional inertia, where they're so used to dealing and engaging and teaching and learning and working in the ways that they've always done it. So to try to deal with the students we have before us today that are different, even different from who they were before the pandemic, that were different from when we were kids, to move them out of that space seems like such a daunting task. And it's daunting because you felt like you needed to do it on your own. Somebody made you believe that because you are a leader, you're standing at the top of the mountain all by yourself, when you all should be helping each other to lift as you climb. So where is your courage to reconnect? I need you to get courage to reconnect back to the passion that you have for why you do what you do. Go back to the dreams. Go find a documentary. Go listen to a song. Go and read your old journals and get back to those dreams you once had, and let them speak louder than the reality you're seeing in front of you. Because your courage is what you're going to need in order to actually now enact your voice. Excuse me, your voice. Because your voice is important. See, the reason why courage is important is because you can't share and encourage your teachers to walk in a spirit of courage that it takes to normalize culturally responsive teaching. You can't ask your teachers to be vulnerable and to speak up and to do what's right for kids, and you're not showing them what that looks like in front of them. See, you have to have this courage. You have to use your voice. You have to let them know that their voice matters, because you use your voice to advocate for them. You expect them to use their voice to advocate for young people as well, and even advocate for themselves. Because what that means is, if they're not bought in to normalizing culturally responsive teaching, if they're not bought in to doing what's right through the vehicle of equity for our young people, then that energy level is going to be low. And what happens when you have low morale, low energy within a school? You got teachers who are burnt out. You got adults who are snappy and irritable. You got people who are putting kids out every time you look around. The kids are getting put out of class. There is destruction and havoc wreaking everywhere. Why? Because they're burnt out. Their energy levels are low. And if you're not speaking up for them to help take some of the things off of their plate, then you're not showing them that their voice matters. When they should feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, right? To have a space where their voice can be heard, can be valued, where they can be seen, understood, not just as teachers complaining who don't want to do their jobs, but as human beings understanding that I have a capacity that is being maximized, excuse me, but not in a positive way. So where is your voice? These things that you want for teachers, you've got to do for yourself. My last point, where are you practicing vulnerability, transparency, in your own journey of good mental wellness? See, the things that are necessary for teachers to grow have to be a part of your journey, instructional leader. You've got to show up and be vulnerable. For your patience. But my point was, where are you practicing vulnerability, transparency, your own journey of good mental wellness and maintenance of your mental wellness? See, this thing that we're asking teachers to do is not a technical job like any other job. It is a human to human connection that is necessary to facilitate a space for bravery and safety and the courage to take risk in teaching our young people. Because I'm going to tell you the truth, I am thinking back on one of my clients right now, and one of the schools or the districts that I work with and am partnered with to normalize culturally responsive teaching and leadership. And you would think on an elementary level that movement and incorporating more of the arts and connecting with student identity would be more of a norm, at least on the elementary level. But in all honesty, many teachers, especially those who are newer teachers, have been taught about what a good teaching environment looks like. It's a quiet space. It's a space where students are sitting docile. They call and answer when they're called upon. There's no chattering of voices that are actually critically thinking through text and working through science projects and tinkering and playing and learning things through curiosity and joy. That seems to be such a radical thing for us to think about as educators. And so when I was working with this client, to have one of their teachers take the risk of igniting student learning, because we use, with my clients, I use the Retta Hammond's framework, which is the Ready for Rigor framework. And one of the first steps is to ignite student learning, because that's where the oldest section of the brain, the reptilian area, it attends to attention and alertness. And so we know we have to start there in order to really facilitate a very engaging learning experience. And so for her to think about ways she can ignite student learning and using movement as one of those ways, she remarked on how uncomfortable it felt, on how awkward she felt, because these things were not a part of her personal identity, her personal norm. And that's the stuff that we tend to think we can ignore when it comes to being an instructional leader. But you got to know your people. You got to know what they're comfortable with. You got to know what they're uncomfortable with. You've got to know the framework of culturally responsive teaching and how you can ignite student attention and alertness through curiosity, through puzzles, through riddles, through provocative statements, through the this or that, through movement, through chants, through songs, through poetry, things that are going to get the brain fired up in a very literal, I can't talk, in a very literal and neuroscientific way, getting the brain ignited and fired up so that the processes, the connections can happen within the brain that helps build this bridge between prior knowledge, older knowledge, cultural funds of knowledge, over into more technical knowledge. It doesn't have to be so cold and disconnected. It should be a bridge. And you can only do that through igniting, but understanding, instructional leaders, that in order for your teachers to embark upon this journey, that's going to require them to take risks, because they're going to do some things they may not be comfortable with. They're going to do some things that are new to them, that they weren't taught in their teacher prep programs, that they didn't see their mentor teacher do, that's not talked about during PLCs in terms of how awkward it feels, but the joy you receive. This teacher received so much joy. You had to see her face. You had to see the expressions her body gave. So much joy, to the point where she says, if it means I've got to feel silly, so be it. I had students that were not engaged, typically heads on the desk. It took so much to get them active into the process. And they were my forerunners. They were my leaders. They were the ones that were excited about the writing process. And this was fifth grade writing, okay? And not all fifth graders love writing. And sometimes it becomes a task and a daunting chore they don't want to engage in. But she gave them movement to help ignite their memory about the process of writing she had been working on them with. And this is the kind of work that I help, even alongside teachers, which I love coaching teachers. That's literally outside of teaching students, which is my first love. Coaching teachers and seeing them try new things is absolutely remarkable. And it's what I love doing with instructional leaders, is helping them to kind of, plan out what is this scope and sequence going to look like. And then emotionally, what may you encounter and how will you overcome that challenge? And there may be an emotional block. There may be a barrier from a previous bad experience when someone, and this is a true story, when one teacher has had, and an instructional evaluator, I'll say it like that, come and observe their class and say that some of the things that we're talking about when we're talking about engaging students and getting them to move and talk and do things that some people think are not what good teaching and learning looks like. She had an experience that told her that that type of engagement was ineffective. It was not what good teaching is. You need more classroom management. And so you got some barriers that you got to identify and you got to know how to overcome alongside in partnership with the teachers that you are supporting, that you are leading through your instructional leadership. And that's going to take you being able to understand how important vulnerability, transparency, and your own journey of good mental wellness is. So, instructional leaders, it's Sunday. I'm here in Arkansas, and so for us, we're out of school tomorrow because there is so much traffic because of the eclipse coming, right? But I encourage you, if you are in Arkansas, to take this time to engage in some soul care. Soul care, your soul is your mind, will, and your emotions. Mind, will, and emotions. So that may look like taking some time to get up in the morning, take a nature walk before it gets too warm, get up and move slow, meditate before you start diving into social media or watching the news for the day. It may require you, some of you went to church today and you got some spiritual tune-ups. And so maybe you reflect on the sermon or the message or the inspiration you heard on today. You do that on Monday. Maybe you walk or go to a park, go by the water, which has calming effects on our mind and our soul and our bodies. Maybe you rest a little bit more and don't think you have to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of the day, but actually take some strategic and deliberate time to rest, eat some healthy meals, move your body, exercise, maybe de-stress with your friends if you do choose to go out and be social, because social care is important to our souls. Spending time with family, engaging in some hobbies or interests that you have that you hadn't had the time to do. You can even do that tonight. I know you got a mound of things to do. I know that your bag is full of either papers you could be grading, reports you could be compiling, data you could be analyzing. But if you are not well, and I'm telling you this from another client who is leaving the field because this job of leadership has taken a toll on her physical and mental wellness. And I'm seeing it happen in real time. Some of you may feel like you're on the brink of that too. But I'm going to tell you, we need you all in the field of education. We need you to be well, though. We need you in order to model or practice, or in order for you to model this vulnerability, this transparency, this journey of good mental wellness. You've got to be embodying it. It has to be a part of your life. And so how you take this journey and you be transparent, you don't have to tell every piece of your life's journey and everything that it may be private and dear to you, right? There is a point where you have to be very discerning about what you do share. But think about the things that you do select to share. It's called selective vulnerability. Think about what you are planning to share. And think about if this were to get out into other spaces, would there be shame connected to it? Would I have a sense of regret for sharing this with my teacher team? Or is me sharing a part of my journey in growing simply as an instructional leader? How I may have been fearful about taking a risk, how I had to pick up courage and use it as my backpack. Like it was the thing that carried so much more with it, right? Courage is the backpack that carried change and sparked innovation and created transformation. But I had to pick up that bag of courage, even though it felt heavy, because maybe it was uncharted territory. You explicitly talk about this journey, even of starting a new position for those who are starting instructional leadership just now. Think about how you can do this, how you can directly show up this way in front of your teacher teams and connect this to a space where they can talk about the journey, even if they're not at the end point, if there is an end, right? A space where they can talk about how nervous they are right now to do a call and response with middle school kids. Because if you know anything about middle school kids, they will roast you, joan you, crack jokes, whatever your region calls it. They have very little mercy, if any at all. But it's just the way they are, right? But that creates a bit of anxiety for some of us as adults because we do want to be accepted. And some of us don't want our young people to crack jokes and make fun of us. So talking about what this looks like and how you can help your teacher teams to navigate the emotional spaces of uncertainty, of fear that are creating barriers to seeing their students engage in unlimited possibilities of their genius and their joy and their curiosity to just shine and flourish in the learning environment. But it starts with you. So I hope that I encouraged you today. I hope that today was an opportunity for you to find your courage. Pick up your courage bag. Your courage bag has some vulnerability in it. It has some transparency in it. It's got your voice in there, the voice that you've allowed to be dampened because of the bureaucracy of education and all the red tape and all of the things that discourage you from dreaming the dreams you dreamt when you first interviewed for your position. So take that bag of courage, take it into your position as an instructional leader, and make a determination bit by bit that you are going to act upon that courage. It's not enough to have these courageous conversations. It's time for us to now be brave. And bravery is the antecedent of some sort of action. So I encourage you to think about what that means for you. If you'd like to learn more about the work that I do, you can visit scholarsforthesoul.com. Again, that is scholarsforthesoul.com. I am your host, Dr. Melanie Battles, CEO and lead consultant of Scholars for the Soul, an educational solutions firm where we are on a mission to normalize culturally responsive teaching and leadership in America and across the globe. You all have a restful Sunday, and I will see you next week, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Peace.